Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is McKinnon Baxter with organicwarfare.com, and we are opening up a webinar series today on chemtrails and geoengineering. How is this affecting your health? And we're going to have several part series. This is part one, how to fight back against the chemical, biological, and radiological exposure. I have a special guest with me today, Mr. Richard Shafsky, and I am going to turn it over to him in just 2 seconds. The first thing I just want to say is there are two fundamental questions here, two fundamental aspects of what's going on. One is, why are they doing it? Who is doing it? We're not going to cover too much of that in this part one. The other is, what can we do about it? What do we have within our control to protect our health? And that's primarily what Richard's going to talk about here today. I'm going to turn it over to you, Richard. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, McKinnon. It's a pleasure. Unfortunately, we have to come together today and we have to discuss the geoengineering that is taking place through our chemtrailing and the chemtrails that are being laid down on us. In fact, I'm going to use the term, we are being bombed now with very, very toxic compounds, very, very toxic organometallic elements that are interfering with our health, that are interfering with our plant life, our growth of our crops that we need. It's cutting back on our ability to feed our livestock. These chemtrails are, in my opinion, the most serious issue that we are now having to confront as individuals, as a society, and in fact we can extend it out to as a civilization. So if we're going to define the problem, we have to take a look at what that problem is. And the problem is that today our water, our food supplies, and our atmosphere are being altered by barium, strontium, aluminum, when you put those together, and they are held together with an element called fluoride. Okay, my background, McKinnon, is in the mining industry. I'm the organometallic chemist that figured out how to get certain heavy metals out of water. Okay, and actually one of the most toxic water systems in the country. It's called the Berkeley Pit. There are those that look at that as a toxicity. These heavy metals in there. I kind of look at it as a little bit differently. These are metals that if we extract them out of the water, they are the foundation for our industrial growth, for our industrial development. I'm talking about iron, I'm talking about copper, I'm talking about molybdenum. Okay, and here in Montana, where we're broadcasting from, the mining industry has been in the past very, very strong. Well, today the mining industry has been basically eliminated. But in the time when we were working as a mining industry here, what my job was to, of course, work underground with hard rock, hardball miners, but at the same time I was in the laboratory. And my job was to figure out how to extract these heavy metals from the water. So on one side, we would have our metals for industrial development, and on the other side, we would have clean water. Believe it or not, those of us in the mining industry, we do not want to pollute the atmosphere. We do not want to pollute the groundwater. We do not want to pollute those of us that are doing the work, as well as our children, our grandchildren. And so the problem today is that those elements that I was used to working with in very, very controlled environments, when you're in a organometallic laboratory and you're working with aluminum, barium, strontium, these are the basic components of the chemtrails. You have to work under a hazmat condition, basically, where you have a positive flow hood. And you don't certainly want to breathe this stuff. You don't want to put it into water and drink it. In fact, anybody who would suggest such a thing would be excused from not only the laboratory, but from the entire facility immediately.
So you're saying that in the mining work that you did, you were using those chemicals?
Yes, we have to use them. For example, fluoride and certain chlorofluoro compounds. These are what we use to bond with these metals. You have to have something to bond with them, and fluoride is used. And these chlorine compounds are used to bond with the metals, get them out of the water, for example, and then you're able to do refining processes. So I'm very, very, very familiar with the use of these compounds. And as I said, you have to work with them under very, very strident conditions. And if you violate those conditions, your lab is going to be shut down and you're not going to have a job. Well, it's pretty disconcerting when we look up into the atmosphere today. We see these compounds being laid down on us. I'm going to use the term we're being bombed with them. And the very elements that I spent my career in making sure that these toxicities were not exposed to the atmosphere, that they were not going into our water, that they are not available for our food supplies, that these are the very things that we're being today bombed with.
Okay, so then again, to clarify, once you used those compounds to extract the metals, your job was in part to make sure that those compounds didn't get into our water that we were drinking or into our atmosphere.
Absolutely. You have to go through filtration systems that pull them out. You use HEPA filters. You use different compounds in your filters to make sure that they do not get into the atmosphere, to make sure they do not get into the water. And at the same time, those are the very same compound elements that are used to then go into the refining process. Okay? Aluminum and fluoride, they go together. You cannot separate them from each other. Now, it has come to my attention and to others that these are the very compounds that are being used today to hold those chemtrails together. When you look and you see them trailing across the sky up there, you have to know and understand, my gosh, those are chlorofluoro compounds, barium, strontium, and aluminum. These are called desiccants. When you combine them together, they dehydrate. They dehydrate the atmosphere. They dehydrate anything that they fall down onto. For example, today we have chemtrailing taking place over the ocean, over the Pacific Ocean. Anybody can go out and you can look and you see the pictures of them. Well, when the barium, strontium, aluminum come down onto the ocean, the surface of the ocean, what happens? The fish are not able to correctly be able to transport oxygen out of the water through their gills, and they're not able to survive. Plankton, which we are all, by the way, dependent upon plankton in our oceans to provide oxygen for us oxygen breathers. Our atmosphere is supposed to be composed of oxygen, there's some nitrogen, there's some hydrogen, a little bit of osmium and heriot. It is not supposed to be chlorofluoro compounds, aluminum, barium, and strontium. These are anti-life. And you cannot grow a crop when you have these elements into the water supplies, for example.
And let me just share with the audience while we're on it here, because this is how I met Richard, was that I, as a living organism, 3 years ago started experiencing severe symptoms of dehydration, flushing of the face, my elbows hurt, my knees hurt, my muscles hurt. And I came to Richard and he explained to me that I, much like any living organism, am made up primarily of water. And this is where we kind of dovetail into your work and how you work with the human body to clean out the human body.
Well, we are a composition of organometallic salts, electrically driven at a pH of 7, a temperature of 98.6. And if we take a look at that very brief definition of who and what we are, we find out, oh my gosh, if we are a composition of these organometallic salts, and if those organometallic salts are now being polluted, then our systems are going to be compromised, and the effects, ladies and gentlemen, on everybody out there are going to be those effects that McKinnon has experienced and that tens of millions are now experiencing. We can call it a flu. We can call it different types of cold. And there's all sorts of labels being attached to it. But everybody around the country is having a cough. Everybody around the country is having some vision problems. Remember, our eyes are, they're water. And when you start to dehydrate our systems, oh my gosh, we start to lose our vision. We start to feel those aches and pains. And one of the main issues that everybody is having to address, especially this last season, is respiratory distress. Okay? When you breathe in the atmosphere that we are now being compelled to breathe, it used to be that you would go outside and, boy, take a big breath of fresh air. It was going to rejuvenate you, right? Today you go out and you take a breath of that air, and what happens? Well, you start to sneeze. You start to get dehydrated. And when we become dehydrated, then we become very, very susceptible to these different bugs that are, by the way, that'll be another program, but they're weaponized, they're manufactured, and they are held together by chlorofluorocompounds. So the respiratory distress, now this can lead to lung problems, heart problems. We have a generation right now of our children and our grandchildren. We have a high degree of autism and associated degradations that are taking place in the human brain. Okay, now a real quick study on what's causing that. When you have aluminum is going into the brain and you're a young child, well, you get to have the autism. When you have the fluoride, the chlorofluorocompounds that are going into the brain, you have autism. And it's related degenerative, whatever we want to call them. Okay? When it happens to us senior citizens, we get to call it Alzheimer's. Okay? Now, when we have these chlorofluorocompounds combined with the aluminum, the barium, the strontium, and it's being put into our water directly, over 80% of the nation's water supply is now fluoridated. When you pollute the atmosphere with barium, strontium, aluminum, it hits with the fluoride that's in the water, you drink the water, and all of a sudden you're going to have these issues. So you get to have autism if you're a youngster, you get to have Alzheimer's if you're a senior citizen. And today, my gosh, this is affecting everybody. So the answer to why is this affecting everybody? Well, it's affecting everybody because we are all having to drink the water. We are all having to breathe the atmosphere. And by the way, the GMOs, okay, some say, well, that's food. No, ladies and gentlemen, look at it. They're putting it right straight in front of us. It's genetically modified organisms. These different organism parts that are being filtrated into our food supply, they are held together and they are bound with chlorofluorocompounds, with fluoride being the main one that we're all very, very familiar with. You can get it in your toothpaste too, by the way. So what we want to do, and what you and I have discussed, and what you have participated in for over the last year, is a protocol that I developed to specifically eliminate these toxic compounds from our systems and replace into our systems those elements that are very, very necessary for our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual function.
And I will just interject here that I have been, for the past 3 years, wrestling with these symptoms, and I'm happy to say, because of using Richard's protocol over the past year, I am about 90% symptom-free and on my way to completely eradicating these symptoms. So I, first of all, thank you for that. And secondly, I just want to encourage everybody who's listening right now to pay attention to what Richard is saying, because to my knowledge, this is the only solution out there to combat the effects of chemtrails and geoengineering. So we ready to jump into the
I'm
protocol?
ready to jump in. Let's go to the protocol.
Okay.
Okay, so the protocol that I developed, that McKinnon has participated in, along with many others. And by the way, everybody out there know and understand, I am not a doctor. These are only suggestions and recommendations. But they come from my very, very strong background in having to work with these toxic elements in very controlled laboratory conditions. And my life experience has now taught me, okay, here's what we have to do. So, first thing every morning, get 8 to 10 ounces of warm water. It's got to be very warm water, because what we're going to do is we're going to dissolve into that glass of warm water 1 to 2 teaspoons of raw honey. Now, this has to be raw honey because we're counting on the enzymes in there to be active. If you get the different grades of honey that have been pasteurized, exposed to tremendous heat, then you're not going to get the benefit of the enzymes that are going to be very, very necessary to link with the next enzymes that are going to be in 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Bragg vinegar with the mother, that's the one I use. That is the one I would recommend. However, if you can't get Bragg, do get a vinegar that does have, quote, the mother. With that, the honey and the vinegar, you want to put in 5 to 7 drops of iodine. I use 3 to 5% strength of Lugol's iodine. Along with that, you want to combine in a tablet of hydrochloric acid, or 1 to 2 mils, that's milliliters of hydrochloric acid in its liquid form, 20 to 50 milligrams of DHEA, and 1 to 2 mils, this is liquid, of fulvic acid ionic minerals. Now, real quickly, I want to refer over to the periodic chart of the elements. If we go over to what's called the halogen group, we have acetine, iodine, bromine, chlorine, fluorine. That fluorine and fluoride compounds are at the very top. These chemtrails are displacing the iodine that is so necessary for the correct function of our systems, and the hydrochloric acid that is, again, very, very necessary for all digestive problems. If you don't have it, you're not going to be able to metabolize. You're not going to be able to digest correctly. And if you don't have your iodine, you're going to have massive thyroid problems. And by the way, every 17 minutes, McKinnon, our blood passes through our thyroid gland. Okay? Now, the iodine that's there is going to take care of purifying our blood. It's going to kill the bugs. The iodine is something that we were built in. It was a composition in our systems to help our immune system fight off all of these things that are, that we're very, very susceptible to. So when the chemtrails eliminate the iodine and the hydrochloric acid, they eliminate the very enzymes that are necessary for correct metabolic function. We have to put them back into our system. So that's the reason for that first drink in the morning. Later on in the day, again, you take 8 to 10 ounces of clean water, and clean water is non-fluoridated, non-chlorinated. Into that, 1 to 2 teaspoons, and these can be large teaspoons, of either zeolite clay, bentonite clay, or diatomaceous earth. There are also some other clays that are excellent. I would suggest that we all understand that clay has played a very, very important role in our systems for a very, very long time. So the zeolite, the bentonite, the diatomaceous earth. With that, you want to add 1 teaspoon of liquid chlorophyll. Liquid chlorophyll is not only a sanitizer, but it does carry oxygen. 1 to 2 teaspoons, I use sodium ascorbate. That's the mineralized version of vitamin C. Okay, so you want to have a high dose of vitamin C. And also CoQ10, follow the daily recommended dosage. Vitamin B12, daily recommended dosage again. Vitamin D3, the folic acid is very, very necessary for cellular replication. Please add a zinc compound in. And please, everybody, put in calcium, magnesium. And again, all of these are done with the daily recommended dosage. Later on in the day, we're going to come to drink number 3. You can take this with food, by the way, and it's going to include 1 tablespoon of a liquid probiotic. Take it with each and every meal. I do say a liquid probiotic because if you're having digestive problems, the liquid probiotic is going to be easier to assimilate and will be more effective than the powder. However, if you don't have the liquid, take the powder. 1 tablespoon of hemp seed oil or 1 tablespoon of fish oil. This is for the omega groups, critical to us. 2 to 4 tablespoons of hemp protein powder or whey protein powder. Mix it in with hemp milk, almond milk, goat milk, or a liquid probiotic. And be sure, if you can, include some aloe vera juice. 500 milligrams of turmeric or curcumin. These turmeric will bond with the aluminum, barium, strontium, and with the fluoride. It'll help get it out of your system, and this also supports your correct immune system function and will help with the inflammatory aspect of what we're getting hit with. And once again, put in 1 to 2 teaspoons now of diatomaceous earth. The diatomaceous earth, it's and you want to get it with a high silica composition. The silica will carry those necessary minerals throughout our system to the place they have to go. And they kind of leave behind a little cage of the diatomaceous earth. That little cage will go around and it will, number 1, it'll bond with those toxic elements that we're having to breathe, that we're drinking, that we're eating. It'll help eliminate them from the system. And it's also a monster against parasitic infection. Parasitic infection is the number 1 killer at this time on planet Earth. We've got to get that out of our system. End up with, again, 500 to 650 milligrams of hydrochloric acid. You can also add in, if you don't have the hydrochloric acid, you can use, again, the Bragg vinegar, 1 to 2 tablespoons. That'll go into that drink. Nighttime supplements, because McKinnon, so many people, when we're getting hit with these toxic elements, there's real problems sleeping. And, nighttime is when the janitors are supposed to come out and clean up our system. If we don't go into theta, delta, REM, we have five states. We have alpha, beta, that's when we're awake. At night, we're supposed to be in theta, delta, REM. If we don't go there, well, the janitors aren't going to be able to do their job and clear our system of these toxic compounds. So, at night, again, with your glass of clean water, add 1 teaspoon of magnesium powder. This can be the product Calm or TME, Safer Medical, but try to get your magnesium powder in. 3 to 5 milligrams of lithium orotate. Now, this is also very important for all of our children. Lithium orotate is our modulating brain element. It gets displaced by the compounds that are in the chemtrails that are in our water, that are in our food. And instead of having lithium in there, what have we got? We've got aluminum, okay? And the disorders, the learning disorders, they can be rectified by making sure that our children, as well as those of us that are senior citizens, and those like yourself, young man.
I'm not a senior citizen.
You're not a senior citizen. You're in the good group where I used to be 20-something years ago. And we're counting on our kids. We're counting on your generation to be able to think. And if we don't have the lithium orotate in our brains, well, we're not going to have those correct thinking processes. Now, the melatonin, 3 to 5 milligrams of sublingual melatonin. That does mean under the tongue. The melatonin is critical for us going into theta delta REM so that we have the correct brainwave modulations taking place. Also, melatonin does instruct our immune system on how to deal with some of the pathogens that are out there in our systems for the janitors to be able to clean up and eliminate from our systems. And if you're continuing to have sleep problems, put in 25 milligrams or more of antihistamine. Now, the reason for this is histamines come out. They are a part of our immune system. We all know that when we get exposed in the springtime to some of the flowering pollens that are going around. Well, our histamines start running wild, and the histamines keep us awake. They keep us in alpha beta. So if we include the antihistamine, that's going to help calm our system down a little bit so we can correctly go into that sleep cycle. Other supplementations in the evening that I would recommend, especially for correct bowel function, is 1 tablespoon of slippery elm powder. Now you want to mix the slippery elm powder with a little bit of water. It'll kind of form into a paste. Add some more water. It will form kind of a gloopy gloppy little mess, okay? When it gets to that state, take it down. The unique thing about the slippery elm powder is it will help rehydrate our intestinal tract, our colon, the mucosal membranes that are getting dehydrated by these compounds that are in the chemtrails, the food, and the water. Okay, we've got to rehydrate. Also, the slippery elm powder will then combine with these toxins and will help eliminate them, get them out of the system. Other recommendations, please, everybody, do not drink the fluoridated water. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, this is not food. Make sure you stay away from soda pop and any of the artificial sweeteners, because their primary constituent is high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup, it has insect repellent built into it. It acts as a dehydrant, and this stuff will actually dehydrate us and interfere with any correct metabolism that's supposed to be taking place. Please, everyone, eat organic at all times, certainly whenever possible, and keep your protein intake high. We are dependent upon the correct assimilation of our nutrients, and protein is very, very important for the composition of all of our muscles, all of our tissues. If we don't have protein, we're not going to be able to build in the elements that we need in order to be able to perform. Walk. A vinegar, honey, and iodine drink combo, which we first talked about, is good at any time as it aids digestion. It is antimicrobial. It acts as a blood cleanser. And by the way, the iodine is an excellent natural chelator. Chelator means it's going to bond with, and it's going to bond with those things that are toxic, help eliminate them from the system, as well as kill the bad bugs. I would also recommend a salt exchange bath. Now, this is something that will help you eliminate chemical, radiological, and biological elements that are coming into our systems. And by the way, today we are having to address radiological elements. We have Fukushima taking place, where we have 3 meltdowns occurring. These very, very toxic radiological elements are going into our atmosphere, irradiating the barium, the strontium, the aluminum, and the fluoride. It's going into the Pacific, and right now we have lost the largest fishery on planet Earth. Okay, so we've got to get these elements out of us. So what you do is you have a hot bath. I would recommend around 104 degrees. You've got to be warmer than the 98.6 degrees that we are. That way an exchange can take place. There's got to be that temperature differential. And with that, you want to add 1/2 to 1 cup, again, of apple cider vinegar, if available. And then, get into the bath, take a minute in there, add 2 to 3 cups of baking soda. I use Arm & Hammer. Make sure it is aluminum free. Wait 1 minute. And by the way, when you add that, you'll feel a little bit of cold going over you. What that means is these, what are called the sodium channels of membrane excitation. They're being opened up, and you wait 1 more minute, and then you come in with 2 to 3 cups of Epsom salts. Epsom salts is also known as, its science name is magnesium sulfate. So the magnesium sulfate will go in through these channels of membrane excitation, the sodium channels, and it will bond with these toxic elements, help flush them out, get rid of the inflammatory elements, and this is a real good way to help eliminate these elements from your system. After you've done that soak, stay in the water, warm it up again if you have to. Then I want you to add in one, maybe a little bit more cup of the clays. The bentonite clay, the zeolite clay, soak for another 15 minutes. The clays have been used for generations as detoxifying, as beautifying compounds, okay? It's going to pull the bad stuff out. It's not only going to make us look a little better, it's going to help us feel a little bit better. Other beneficial supplements that we should all include every day into our diet: some selenium, some chlorella, some L-tyrosine, organic sulfur, glutathione, ginkgo biloba, and alpha-lipoic acid. We'll get into the benefits of these things at another time, but please take my word on it, they're going to be very beneficial for you. Exposures, again, to avoid. Avoid the vaccinations. The vaccinations always have what's called an adjuvant in them. The adjuvants that are most commonly used are aluminum and mercury. They are held together with fluoride in the vaccinations. Avoid those vaccinations. They are toxic beyond comprehension. Avoid the GMO foods whenever possible. Certainly avoid the fluoridated and chlorinated waters. Get familiar with different filtration systems that can eliminate them from your household waters. And you don't want to drink it, much less bathe in it. And all of your foods that have been exposed to pesticides, which most foods have unless they're organic, you want to avoid them. Eat organic only. Now, in combination with this protocol, I want to talk real briefly about some homeopathic remedies for chemtrails and geoengineering. These were presented to me by my very good friend Michael Bayshore, who is a homeopathic practitioner. He has done great work for all of us as individuals and also for our country. He is an oath keeper and a veteran. And some real simple procedures to follow. Do not touch the remedy. In other words, just kind of pour them off into the cap, place them under your tongue. Do not drink for 15 minutes before taking the remedy, and do not have any food intake for at least 2 hours before taking these remedies. After you take them, you can eat and drink 15 to 20 minutes afterwards, after you've dissolved them under your tongue. That's where you're going to place them. Keep the remedies away from electricity, batteries, cell phones, magnets, things like that, because the electrical will upset the harmonics of these remedies. So, keep them in a safe place. Put them in the medicine cabinet. Do not brush your teeth at night with any mint flavored toothpaste. The mint will, the harmonic again of the mint, it will override the beneficial aspects of the remedy. And while you're taking these remedies, I would suggest you do not use the essential oils, as they are very, very strong and can be very beneficial to us. But at the same time, they will override the positive effects of these remedies. The homeopathic remedies specific for the chemtrails, week 1, and the dosage is going to be 1 dosage amount is equal to 3 pellets. And these are very, very little small pellets. You'll see them in there. You want to take alumina. Dosage strength is 30C. 1 dose of this every 6 weeks. Now, what I do this myself. Follow it in the 2nd week with Barita Maricata, and that is again a 30C strength. 1 dose every 6 weeks. And then in your 3rd week, take strontium. 30C, 1 dose every 6 weeks. Now you can take all of these in combination with what's called carbonium sulfuricum. Again, that dosage strength is 30C, 1 dose every 2 weeks. This is to neutralize and then help eliminate the barium, the strontium, the aluminum from our systems that we're being just assaulted with every day now in our food, our water, and by the chemtrails. I would recommend doing this right before you go to bed at night. Make sure, again, you haven't had anything to eat for at least 2 hours, and take it in take it down. And I sometimes do it very, very early in the morning. If I've had a late snack at night, okay, you got to get up at 5 a.m. and make sure you've got that 2 hours in between where you haven't had any food intake. And I'm going to include in here, again, this is from Mike Bayshore, remedy number 2, and this is for radiation exposure, as I brought out a few moments ago. I guess we could say minutes ago. Fukushima is going off every day. We are being exposed to radiological elements now. It's detectable in the ocean, in our air, in our foods actually, because it's coming down into our food supplies. So what you want to use is cadmium sulfuricum. Again, the dosage strength on that is 30C. And I would also recommend you do this right before you go to bed at night or very, very early in the morning. The dosages on here are pretty well defined as 30C, the dosage strength. Now, depending upon the exposures that we have, and we are having to do this, we are getting exposed every day. So I would recommend to everybody, put yourself on a monthly or 6-week cycle with all of these homeopathic remedies. For the chemtrail products and for chemtrail remedies, please go to chemtrailremedy.com and you can go into the resources category. Thank you, McKinnon. Richard Chapsky's Chemtrail Protocol is going to be there. I look forward to doing another program with you real shortly.
Well, you bet, and thank you, Richard, very much for all this great information. So we decided to create a special website just for the remedies for chemtrails. So organicwarfare.com, you'll still find Richard's remedy on that site as well. But if you want to get the exact recommendations for the chemtrail remedy, just go to chemtrailremedy.com. And thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having you back.
Well, I'm looking forward to being back, and maybe we can do this on a weekly basis.
Sounds good.
We're getting assaulted daily, so we want to do it weekly. And there's one other thing I'd like to bring up just before we go off the air here,
Sure.
McKinnon. People always ask, well, who is doing this to us? I want to call your attention, and you can go into what's called, you go on the internet, go to the Legal Information Institute. You'll be able to look up, and this is called the 50 USC, that's the US code, dash 1520A, 1528. Ladies and gentlemen, you will find out that these programs are under the direct command of our Secretary of Defense and of our Commander-in-Chief, okay? So it's time to pay attention to not only what is taking place, but who is doing this to us? Unfortunately, it's our own Commander-in-Chief and our own Secretary of Defense that are overseeing these programs. Please contact your local politician, write a letter, get on the telephone, ask them, demand. I am an oath keeper, okay? I'm going to call attention to all those that are flying these planes, all of those that are in command here. Pay attention to your oath to protect and defend us. Do not continue to bomb and assault us. Thank you very much.